Welcome to Spiritual Minefield. Today we're going to continue finding Jesus in the book of Psalms. And today we're going to look at Psalm chapter 107, seeing the Son of God in the storm. Stay tuned. So we're going to go to Psalms 107, verses 23 to 30. So let's go there. Okay, so verses 23 to 30. Okay. So it says, others went out to sea in ships, conducting trade on the mighty waters. They saw the works of the Lord. And then here, Lord is literally in reference to Yahweh and his wonders in the deep. Now, mind you, you're going to see God's power in the ocean. For he spoke and raised a tempest that lifted the waves of the sea. They mounted up to the heavens, then sank to the depths. Their courage melted in their anguish. They reeled and staggered like drunkards, and all their skill was useless. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He calmed the storm to a whisper. Okay, I want you to remember that. The Lord Yahweh calmed the storm to a whisper, and the waves of the sea were hushed. They rejoiced in the silence, and he guided them to the harbor they desired. So we see here that Yahweh himself allowed a storm to come, arose a tempest to test their faith. And they cried out to the Lord for help, and God came through, and he quieted the storm. Here you show that God has power over the elements. There's nothing that the Lord Yahweh cannot do. Okay, he can do anything. Now we're going to go here, and here's only God has control over the elements. So we're going to go to Mark chapter 4, and we're going to see Jesus, the Son of God, in the storm. We're going to see that here in Psalms 107, only Yahweh has the power over the wind and the waves, okay, over the elements. And we're going to see that Jesus has the same power. So we see here that the Lord here in Psalms 107 is Jesus Christ. And we're going to see that right now. So let's go to Mark chapter 4, verses 35 to 41. And we're going to see that Jesus tested his disciples' faith, which turned out to be very little. So we're going to see that test, and we're going to see how the test looked like. So Mark 4, 35 to 41. So we're going to go there now. Okay, so we're going to start in verse 35. And it says, when that evening came, he said to his disciples, Jesus said to his disciples, let us cross to the other side. After they had dismissed the crowd, they took Jesus with them, since he was already in the boat, and there were other boats with him. Soon a violent windstorm came up, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that it was being swamped. But Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him and said, Teacher, don't you care that we are perishing? Then Jesus got up and rebuked the wind and the sea. As you can see, that literally mirrors Psalms 107. Silence, he commanded, be still, and the wind died down, and it was perfectly calm, exactly as Yahweh did it in Psalm 107. Why are you so afraid? He asked. Do you still have no faith? Overwhelmed with fear, they asked one another, who is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Who is this? The answer is in Psalm 107. He is the Lord Yahweh. That's who Jesus is, the living God. Only God has control over the weather. Only God can cause the wind to die down and the waves to be calm. Only God can do that immediately. He says here, silence, he commanded, be still, and the wind died down. It didn't take a long time. It didn't take 30 minutes, an hour. It happened immediately, and it was perfectly calm. Only the Lord can do that. So Psalm 107 shows you Jesus is the one portrayed in Psalm 107. Because here you have Jesus acting it out. It's almost like in Psalm 107 was giving you a prophecy what was going to happen in the future, when the Son of God was going to come to earth. One of the things that he was going to do to show who he really is, God in human flesh. Okay, so here's the conclusion. Why did Jesus with his disciples get into the boat and Jesus brought up this tempest? The reason why Jesus brought up the storm so that disciples could be in it was to test their faith. So the Lord uses storms in your life so it would determine what type of faith you really have. So when you go through difficulties, when you're going through hardship, when you're going through personal, tailored storms that God has determined for you, it is to see what type of faith you have. Now, God knows what type of faith you have, but he wants you to know what type of faith you have because he wants to make you grow. And the only way you're going to grow in the faith is to know where your faith is at. Because once you know your faith is really down or a little bit in the middle or wherever it may be, now you know what to do to make it grow. So if you act a certain way and you didn't trust in the Lord, or maybe you stopped praying, or maybe you stopped reading the Bible because of the storm, or maybe you looked for help, in other areas instead of going to the Lord in prayer and asking him for help, is going to show you what type of faith you have and where you fall short and what you have to fix. See, that's why the Lord allows storms in your life, so that you could fix your faith. Now, of course, you cannot make your faith grow. What the Lord wants you to do is to go to him who makes your faith grow, and he will make it grow. So the next time you go through a storm, don't think that God is angry at you. Don't think that God is, for whatever reason, disciplining you. If you didn't really do anything wrong, don't think it's a discipline, or God doesn't like you, or Jesus is very angry at you. He's doing it for your good because he wants to see where your faith lies. Is it in him or is it somewhere else? You need to always fix your eyes on Jesus Christ. And it's not going to be easy, but you have to exercise your faith. So Psalms 107 shows Jesus in the storm. And if Jesus in the storm, and then if you look at Mark chapter 4, where's Jesus at? He's with his disciples in the boat, in the storm with him, meaning that when you're in the storm, Jesus is going to be in it with you. He's not going to abandon you. Remember Daniel's 3 friends? When Nebuchadnezzar threw them in the furnace, Jesus was in the furnace with them, protecting them. Don't you see that when you go through the storm, Jesus goes through it with you? And he's there. He's not going to let you alone. So don't worry. Put your faith in Christ. Thank you for listening.